What's the saying? If you fail to plan, you plan on failing. So now is the time to go ahead and start planning for your spring garden. Hey guys, it's Daryl, Louisiana for living. So I've been gardening in my backyard here now for a number of years. I have a good idea what plants I want to plant. I have a good idea where I want to put them. But you also got to plan for that. I have all my raised beds already built up. I just amend them every season. And so I've already ordered seeds and I got them in. Even with experience in my garden, things can and do go wrong, especially if I don't plan. You're going to be just thrilled with and satisfied with the garden you're going to be able to grow in your backyard. All right, it's my goal last year as well as this year. Through my channel, I want to be able to lead, influence, or inspire up to 1,000 followers or watchers to go ahead and put in a brand new spring backyard organic raised bed garden. Again, you're going to be so satisfied that you've done it and you start seeing your harvest come in. There's no feeling like that. And I do encourage you to check out my Spring Garden 101 series. It's 11 videos that takes you all the way through the process of the planning side that we're going to talk about today, through if you need to make a new bed or amend a bed that you already got, and all through the process of sowing seeds, whether indoors or direct sow or planting seedlings maybe that you get from your local nursery. So go ahead and subscribe, like that video, feel free to share it. All right, let's cover these 5 key planting topics. Topic number 1 is when can I plant my crops out here in my garden? And to answer this, there's a couple of different resources that you need to go check out. So your USDA, the U.S. Department of Agriculture's, their plant hardiness zones, they got a map across the whole United States which shows which zone you're in. For example, I'm zone 9A here in kind of the southeast Louisiana. And it actually goes to 9B down further lower down toward the delta and the coast. But based on that hardiness zone, it drives what kind of plants you can plant or not. You got to know what zone you're in, and that basically just tells you what the climate is. And it also comes into effect with your last and first frost date. And so in this case, it's your last frost date. We're going into spring. We can't plant some of our more weather susceptible plants like tomatoes, squash, those kind of things. They just don't do good if you freeze. So if we go ahead and plant them out now, you're probably going to have all your plants killed. There are many resources to look at. And if you look like Farmer's Almanac, and there's other resources, March 13th is my estimated last freeze date with a 30% probability. So you can take a chance if you put it out on March 1st and you don't have a freeze and you're in good shape. But if you do put it out on March 1st and at some point after that you catch a frost or a freeze come in, which does happen sometimes, and it's a low chance, 30% probability, but if it does, then you're probably going to lose all your plants, at least the ones that are susceptible to the freeze. And recognize there's some seeds you can go ahead and direct sow into the garden. They're less susceptible to the cold, or they're going to really be under the ground before they come up, after that last freeze. This includes vegetables like carrots, radishes. I mean, the temperature's not going to kill them, so you can go ahead and plant them ahead of time. And even like beans, cucumber, a week or two before, they're still underneath the ground. Before that March 13th date, you'd be in pretty good shape. All right, number 1, just a summary. You need to make sure you understand your USDA plant hardiness zones, what your last estimated freeze date or frost date would be for your area. Then you will know what plants you can actually put out into the garden. And it also drives what some of the seeds you can sow, direct sow into the garden. So that's a really critical thing to understand before you start on your new garden. All right, number 2 is, are you going to plant a bush or vining type of variety of plants? And what I mean by that is, let's take beans for an example. You can get pole beans, what they call pole beans, and they actually vine and grow continuously to some extent. Or you can get bush beans, which will just be a bush and you'll have your beans directly on that bush. It doesn't sprawl out like a pole bean or a vining type of plant. So squash is another example. You got some squash, they call it a bush, squash, and it's not going to sprawl out. Whereas some of your squash, they're going to vine and just go all over the place. You got to make sure you understand what kind of plant you're getting, and does that match the area that you have in your garden. And to some extent, this is vertical gardening, right? So that really enhances getting the most output of your harvest based on the square foot of the garden that you got. So if you can do some vertical growing, then it's good to do that. So what you need to have in that case, though, is you need to have a trellis of some sort. And I have 16-foot cow panels, which I have a couple of them. I actually put those between the beds, just bend them over, and it's a big arch. There's other metal type of trellises that I use. And there's one in the background back there, just a real simple, cheap conduit trellis that I put together with just your simple netting. And this was plastic netting from the local nursery. Various different ways you can do that, but you got to have a trellis if you're going to have these long growing vining pole type of vegetables. All right, number 3 is, are you going to go ahead and sow your own seeds inside at this point, early in the spring, grow them up inside, then put them out? Are you planning on getting transplants that are seedlings basically that you can get from your local nursery? And that has big implications about what you should be doing now versus waiting till if Zone 9A early March, right? Now, if you choose to go ahead and sow some seeds inside, you got to make sure you have a grow light. It's also helpful to have it's a heating pad basically that goes underneath the trays that you have your seeds in. And that's what I do at my garden. I grow almost everything inside from a seed. All my squash, all my peppers, all my tomatoes, all different kinds of things there. I'll go ahead and put them inside to take advantage of the time that I can get those transplants growing, and then put them out after the last freeze. Now some of the advantages of doing that, yeah, it does take a little bit of work, but it does allow you a much larger variety of plants. That's part of the fun for me, is when I do a garden, I love to plant stuff I've never planted before, different varieties, even different types of plants, and that's just fun for me. So sowing those seeds inside enables that, because your local nursery, they're going to have, I don't know, 6, 8 different types of tomatoes, let's say, and they're good to grow in this area. That's why they chose those. But if you were looking for variety, you're not going to have a huge variety at your local nursery. So it's an advantage to sow your seeds inside because of that. You can also save some money. So look, those tomatoes you buy, they're $3, $4, but it's pretty expensive to go and buy plants at your nursery when you can do them yourself. Now, the one warning, of course, is you can also build an addiction towards buying seeds. That's what I got to be careful with. Again, I love to grow different things, so I end up getting different seed packets, and you can spend a little bit of money on seeds as well. But it's definitely an advantage that you can save some money growing them yourself. If you sow them inside, you also get the opportunity to get a better quality of plants. So every soil block I have, I overseed. So I don't just put one seed, I may put 2 or 3 seeds. And then as they start coming up, you identify which one of your seedlings is your strongest and best quality seedling. We keep it, and you get little scissors and you snip the rest of them. They're not going to hurt this one, the more robust plant seedling, and it's going to grow on up bigger. So you're guaranteeing yourself to have a good quality of plants, just to make sure you got some good, robust, quality plants that are going to do great and successful in your garden. Another advantage is you're able to ensure that your plants are going to stay organic. That's important to me and my family. Now, your local nursery is not necessarily going to not be organic, but the point is you just really don't know. And you get to start gardening 2 months early. So I do have a winter garden, so you see behind I got some brassicas growing back here. I've pulled a lot of the old summer stuff that was still out here. So I do still have a garden, but man, I get excited about spring garden. Everybody does. I think that's the main season that a lot of people want to be able to really have a garden. And it's the greatest season to go ahead and start a new garden. So which I definitely encourage that. But it gives you a jump start. So you get 2 months ahead of time, you get to start playing with your garden, getting back in your hobby. Now in that colder area, you probably aren't doing anything hardly in your garden. And it may be too cold to hardly even go outside. So this just gives you an opportunity to get a jump start on your garden. And part of the advantage again for gardeners with a short season, which means you're up in the north states and things of that nature, you just don't have the long of a season between your freezes, your last freeze and your first freeze of the year. It's a much shorter season, and so it does give you a 2-month jump start on that shorter season, which is absolutely critical if you only have a limited number of months that you're able to actually grow spring type of crops. And that's not a big issue here in Zone 9A and a lot of the southern states. I mean, we have a long growing season between your last frost date and your first frost date of the fall is about 252 days. So we have a long season. You still get a 6 to 8 week jump on getting your garden started. That means you can probably put in another set of tomatoes. You may even get a third set in. And then based on a long season, you're able to do some succession planting. And the final advantage of sowing seeds inside is just you get to experience, the certain satisfaction of taking a seed, planting it, watering it, watching it germinate, watching it sprout up. You plant it, you talk to it and you love it and you feed it and it grows up and it has tomatoes for you, it has peppers for you. And then the end of the life cycle when you got to go ahead and pull it up. So there's a certain satisfaction in just taking this through the whole life cycle. But I'll tell you, if this is your first try at gardening, if you're putting together a new raised bed or any kind of garden, you're putting together any kind of new garden, I would probably recommend you go ahead, get your garden ready ahead of time by going and wait for that last freeze date. And I'd say go ahead and purchase your plants from your local nursery. I think it's just going to be easier for you. I got videos in the Spring Garden 101 series that takes you through the whole process from sowing seeds inside all the way through to planting them out in the garden. So if you're ready to take on that challenge, we got some information for you and you can absolutely do that as well. All right, number 4, what kind of soil do we need to have to be successful in our new raised bed? Or if you got an existing bed, how are we going to amend it? What kind of soil amendments do we need to put in the soil? Now, there's a couple of choices. You can go to most local nurseries and they tend to have some kind of bulk garden mix or raised bed mix or something like that. I've done that one time. I had kind of a bad experience. The soil did not have a whole lot of compost in it, or didn't have hardly any, I think. Had a lot of clay in it, and I kind of regretted using that. That was when I put together one of these first beds. And it took me years really to get it back to where it needs to be from the soil mix that I like to have. The other choice, I guess you could get some of the bags. So you got, 1 cubic foot per bag or something like that, and you can go ahead and buy all the soil that you need. So that can work as well. The final is you can also just mix up your own soil mix, and that's what I do in my garden. It's a mix that's called Mel's Mix, which is kind of a square foot gardening era. But it works great. It's a third vermiculite, it's a third Sphagnum peat moss, it's a blend of 3 to 5 different compost. And I firmly believe in that. It's a little bit of work because you got to mix it all together. Yeah, especially for a new bed, it's a good bit of work to do that. But it's well worth it if you can. And when you amend the soil, you actually mix in that same mix within the top 8 inches. Try not to kill all your earthworms because that's your volunteer farmers helping you. But you mix that in the top first 8 inches or so. It'll pick up your nutrients and so forth. Sometimes I also add some azomite rock dust. If I haven't added that in a while, usually like once a year I'll do that. And remember, if you have a raised bed, there's no need to till the soil. That's one of the things we get away from with a raised bed. And as an alternative, from season to season, you can just take some a blend of compost and amend that to the soil. I've done that in the past. I don't always go and put the entire Mel's Mix amendment each season. So remember, I got spring, summer, and fall gardening. Plus, we're getting ready to start. It's winter, I guess. Super early spring. We're going to be sowing some seeds as well. So we need to take care of that kind of stuff now before we start sowing seeds, and especially before that last frost, so we can go ahead and plant our plants outside. All right, number 5 is plan to put some flowers, at least 1 or 2, in your garden. And there's a couple of reasons why I like to do that. Number 1 is it just looks good. I love seeing the flowers, and also one of the main benefits is it attracts pollinators and beneficial bugs. All right, so pollinators, I'm talking about bees, I'm talking about that maybe mason bees, your regular honey bees, and actually wasps and butterflies, things of that nature. They pollinate our plants for us. So they are drawn in by the flowers, but they're also drawn in by the flowers of our vegetable. And remember, for most plants, if the flower's not pollinated, you're not gonna get a fruit. You're not gonna get a vegetable. You're not gonna get something from that flower or from that plant. So pollination is an important thing that happens. And then some flowers, and marigold is an example, they're supposed to be able to deter pests away. Similar kind of thing applies with herbs. You may want to consider planting some herbs in your raised bed. Basil, rosemary, I think dill. A couple of these kind of herbs. There are also chives is another one. They help deter those bad bugs as well. It's not a guarantee. We're trying to store organics. We try to do, plant. I try to plant a marigold in the middle of my beds just to try to help deter some of those bad bugs. But again, one of the main reasons why I like flowers, at least one or two in each raised bed, it just plain old looks good. And finally, you can go ahead and just cut some of those flowers. Just cut some of those flowers, bring them in, put them in a vase, put some water in it, and that would surprise and make your significant other happy. Which is any opportunity we got for that is a good thing. Remember, happy wife, happy life. Hey guys, thanks for coming back again to Louisiana Simple Living. It's time again to go ahead and plan for your spring garden. And that's one of my goals, is to get 1,000 people to start a new backyard organic and raised bed garden. And I'm going to use my channel to lead, influence, provide some knowledge to help people get that thing going and to get a new raised bed garden going. Because it's just a good thing for everyone. It's a good thing for the family. And it's a good thing for the environment. And so there are a number of decisions you really kind of got to make now when you're doing your planning. Even again with my years of experience, it takes some planning to make sure I got things laid out right and in place. Looking at notes, looking at all different kind of things that I got to do to make sure I'm doing the right, putting everything in place the way it needs to be put in. And I've included a short discussion on 5 key things the decisions you got to think about and plan about to get your garden right. And look, my Spring Garden 101 series covers these 5 topics amongst many others in a lot more detail. So I strongly recommend that you go and you check out those videos. There's 11 of them, and again, it takes you through the whole process of planning your garden, figuring out what kind of plants you're going to have, how many, what kind of spacing, all the way through sowing seeds indoors, sowing seeds outdoors. If you have to build a new raised bed, or if you got to amend one that you already got, all the way through mulching your garden. So it's a pretty comprehensive, detailed type of series or videos that would greatly help you, especially if you're putting in a new backyard organic raised bed garden. So just a reminder, make memories now, make memories with family and friends now rather than later. You never know when that opportunity may not be available. We got all the parents coming over today, even for no particular reason, just come over and visit, and we'll eat some good lunch and spend some time together. So that's important. And as always, I will see you on the next video.